Donald Trump is more unpopular than any president in history at this point in their presidency. And that's not just because of Democrats and independents, but Republicans as well. And that is why we are seeing Democrats across the country seize on that anger against the most incompetent president in history and go to red districts, red states, and go to conservative media, which is exactly what Gavin Newsom just did, appearing on Fox and shutting down their lies, calling out Donald Trump and announcing a special little new ad that's going to be playing on the network. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. We're getting pretty close to 1 million subscribers here. Now let's check out Gavin Newsom.
Well, even if I was going to be charitable, I would say his inconsistent, chaotic approach does the opposite. It freezes investment, consumer confidence, small businesses, large, medium-sized businesses. Everybody I talk to feels very similarly. This chaos is not the kind of predictability and stability that would ultimately inure, I think, to Trump's favor in terms of, again, making his case. But the impacts, Larry, here in California, 40% of the goods movement in the United States through just the Port of Long Beach and L.A. are outsized. We're the #1 manufacturing state, #1 ag state, #1 in direct foreign investment, two-way trade. These impacts are being felt. They're real. And this is just simply chaotic, including now apparently 80%, not 145% on the Chinese tariffs.
Well, what I don't understand in general, and you may have an answer to this. All right, people that disagree with what President Trump is doing, you can't argue that the world trading system is fair. I mean, it's an unfair system. It's an unbalanced system. I mean, just read you a couple things. I'm sure you know this stuff, but in terms of tariffs themselves, European Union has 50% higher than we do. China, twice as high as we do. Vietnam, 3 times as high. Brazil, 3.5 times, India, 3 times. The World Trade Organization permits all this. They never step in to remedy this. It's a very unfair trading system. We, the United States, is at a great disadvantage. It has harmed our manufacturing. It's harmed our automobiles. It's harmed our agriculture sector. I mean, that's the case. But you can't deny that those tariffs are much higher. And what Trump is saying is, okay, if you charge us higher, we're going to go higher. But if you charge us lower tariffs, then we will go lower. And that includes non-tariff barriers as well. Now, to me, that's very, common sense and plain spoken. How else would you do it unless you're willing to accept these fact that America gets the short end of the tariff stick? So what would you do about it, Governor?
Well, look, I'm not denying, and remember, I hardly said a peep when the Biden administration extended broadly the tariffs against China and then actually tripled them for Chinese steel and aluminum. So I'm not an absolutist when it comes to tariff policy. I just think it should be coupled with an industrial policy that's worker-centered. I think that's missing a little bit. Look, let me submit a recognition of that imbalance, but the approach he's taking is just quixotic. It's destructive. It's having a profound impact on our confidence and our relationships around the globe, our relationships to one another, supply chains. Look, 60%, and Larry, you know this, 60% now of those container ship bookings from China now have been reduced. It's a serious moment around supply chains and back to school supplies. Christmas toys could quite literally be impacted. And I don't think he sold this well. He didn't prepare us well. The market volatility, but the business impacts are disproportionate and outsized. It's a very serious moment. There's a better approach if he wanted to take it. He hasn't taken it yet.
Well, I think there was a lot of shock and awe. I grant you that. And it took a lot of people by surprise. I'll grant you that. But now it seems to be settling in. And you mentioned the China story. I mean, China's been taking us. Listen, Gavin, I was on the China trade team for two and a half years. And we put together a deal. China, the phase 1 China trade deal. We signed it with much ballyhoo. I don't know if you were at that. I mean, you might have been. It was in the White House. It was in the State Department. We had gala dinners and whatnot. And, you know, what did they do? They didn't adhere to it. They didn't adhere to any of it. They didn't adhere to the fentanyl. They didn't adhere to the intellectual property theft, the forced transfer of technology, the purchases of agriculture, manufacturers, all that. They just dissed us, you know. They lied to us. And so Trump's trying to do something about it. It may not be perfect. Now, they're negotiating, as you know. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's negotiating in Switzerland with the Chinese. That may be promising or it may not be. But, you know, who can rely on China? I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not denying that. I mean, the IP issues are legendary. And, of course, that impacts, again, forgive me, disproportionately the state of California, the fourth largest economy in the world, where we dominate in innovation, entrepreneurialism, more venture capital, obviously more patents emanating from this state than any other state, the number one manufacturing state in America. And obviously the trading relationships with China are outsized here. And you're right, on tech restrictions, I mean, these things have to be advanced. There's just a better approach than the approach he's taking. And what my fear is, it's not my fear, it's the reality. We've seen 11% decline last month in tourism in the state of California. We're projecting, after record-breaking tourism spend, we're seeing the impacts already of this tariff war. We're seeing the impacts with dock workers. We're seeing the impacts with truckers, with small businesses, with my own eyes. This is not an intellectual exercise. So if it wasn't so chaotic, I would at least engage in a very, I think, reasonable conversation about addressing those issues with a little bit more muscularity. But this is recklessness. And I cannot impress upon you, you know this, the impacts can't be unwound quickly and easily. And I fear that Geneva is not going to be a success. It needs to be. I'm promoting that success, but I very much fear that the nature of the decision-making that seems to come on news cycles, not on the basis of a grand strategy, is the great impediment in terms of getting to the place we all want to go.
Well, there's no question Chinese exports to the U.S. is way down in April. There's no question about that. And there's no question that the container shipping has also fallen off, you know, not surprisingly, given the high level of the tariffs. On the other hand, I think that I'm not speaking for the administration. I'm not part of this administration. I was in the first term, as you know. But I'm saying I think their strategy is to make deals, lower tariff, lower non-tariff barrier deals with the surrounding countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, India. I think India is probably on the cusp of an announcement. I could be wrong, Gavin, but I think they are. South Korea certainly may be on the cusp. So I think there'll be substitution effects. Those countries which are our allies, not China's allies, probably will take up the slack, not through transshipping the way it was in the old game, but because they've learned how to make good factories and good products too. And, you know, California and the rest of the country will be able to trade with them. So let me just say this right. If Governor Newsom runs for president, as President Newsom, you agree with the thesis that we have an unfair trading system, that their tariffs are higher than ours, foreign tariffs are much higher, that our market access for our exports needs to be improved, and we need a level playing field. You agree with the thesis. How would a President Gavin Newsom do it differently, I guess I'd like to know.
Well, that's a hypothetical. I can just say, look, I wouldn't do it the way it's being done. Identifying a problem is one thing, and advancing solutions and strategies in a consistent and comprehensive way, step by step, is the preferred approach. The instincts to bring manufacturing back are spot on, absolutely right. And with respect, I would argue that the Biden administration advanced them in a deeply meaningful way. Talk about worker-centered industrial policy, the CHIPS and Science Act, the IRA, a framework of focus that I think was very populist. This was a President Biden, in this case, that walked the picket line line that saved the pensions for the Teamsters. But there was at least a more consistent, rational approach. I'd rather see him double down on the CHIPS and Science Act. I think tariffs can be used in targeted terms, but it's hard. It's hard work. And this notion that you can just arbitrarily across the board raise it here, emotionally raise it there, lower it emotionally, lower it here, this sends messages, mixed messages that make investment almost impossible. And as a business person, as you know myself, a guy who's created 21 small businesses, the impacts even on my businesses are outsized that rely on exports, into Canada as an example, and rely on making long-term investments. It's put a chill on the ability to make wise decisions.
All right. Well, of course, when I first met you and interviewed you on another network, you were the moderate mayor of San Francisco, rather pro-business, as I recall. And you and I did some business even while I was in the White House 4 or 5 years ago. So we appreciate it very much. You're very kind to come on the show. I hope you'll come back on the show and we can talk about some of the merits and demerits in these other areas. California Governor Gavin Newsom, thank you very much.
This is exactly what we need. For far too long, Democrats did not like the idea of appearing on Fox, of giving any legitimacy to that platform. But what we need to recognize with so many platforms, off of cable especially, is that they're going to exist without us. So instead of bringing MAGA to our platforms, let's go on theirs and call out their lies. And Gavin Newsom is certainly one of the best at that. We need more of Gavin. We need more of Pete Buttigieg. We need to see more Democrats appearing on Fox, especially when it's Will Cain, that new host that I always talk about so much because he's just so incompetent. Even thinking about his show kind of cracks me up. But that's not, like I said, the only thing that Gavin is doing to bring the fight to Fox. He just announced a new ad as well that's going up there, and we can take a look right here.
California is now the 4th largest economy in the world. Innovation, manufacturing, agriculture. And we've done it by reducing trade barriers and delivering for American consumers. But the Trump administration is putting all of that at risk, halting delivery of essential goods through our ports. Today, it's school backpacks. In a few months, it'll be Christmas toys. These tariffs punish families and risk ending America's run as the world's greatest economy. Take it from California. We're the ones leading it.
I love this for a couple of reasons. Not only is it Gavin Newsom calling out Donald Trump, calling out his trade war, and doing it on Fox, but he's changing the narrative around blue states. I'm tired of people saying, well, you know, I don't really like Republicans, but the economy. Oh, they're better on the economy. By what metric? Republican presidents crash the economy. They crash the stock market. They create recessions. We're watching the stupidest Republican president create the stupidest economic manufactured, man-made by Donald Trump's ignorance crash ever. We need to do away with that narrative, and we need to continue to build up blue states, have success, and talk about it. I am tired of this narrative that Democrats can't govern. Democrats save the country when Republicans screw up governing. Gavin Newsom needs to hammer home that message, and he needs to continue to have more successes. This is on you now, Gavin, in your state to be able to shift the narrative. Because once you do, you better believe we're going to be talking about it every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Like I said, we're getting pretty close to 1 million. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.